World News and Events COVID-19 on June 07 vertical line World News vertical line KCVC. Note, this is a collaborative video made between Travel for All Vantage and Knowledge of Coronavirus channel. Please respectfully welcome everyone. The following is the remarkable news most on June 07 as follows. 1. American news. A 12th night of protests has taken place across the United States and around the world after the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man killed in police custody. 2 police officers in Buffalo, New York, have pleaded not guilty to assault after pushing over and seriously injuring a 75-year-old protester. 57 Buffalo officers resigned from the police force's emergency response team after the 2 officers were suspended. CNN believes that the campaign message may be a recipe for Mr. Trump's success in the 2020 campaign. According to the previous trend, if voters consider the economy growing, they will usually vote for the incumbent president and vice versa. Mr. Trump's message may be, "You may not like the way I do politics, but look at the results. Is it really time to change the president?" In fact, Mr. Trump seems to have moved that he would choose the economic message to strengthen voters' confidence. How can you impeach a man who is considered to be the most successful president in the first 2 years of his tenure in U.S. history? Trump wrote on Twitter last week, seemingly referring to the issue of his being subject to a number of recommendations. Protests in the U.S. dragged on to the 12th. Britain and Australia marched against racism. Tens of thousands of protesters marched in Washington and other U.S. cities on Saturday to demand an end to racial discrimination and violence by U.S. law enforcement after the death of black man George Floyd. The protests dragged on to the 12th. Washington, D.C. is the site of the largest march, when thousands of people gather at the Lincoln Memorial and other places before converging at the White House. Another march passed through George Washington University chanting slogans, "I can't breathe, raise your hand, don't shoot, we march to hope, not out of hatred." In New York, a crowd of protesters crossed the Brooklyn Bridge down below Manhattan on Saturday afternoon. In Philadelphia, protesters gathered on the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art chanting the motto, "No justice, no peace." Others marched along Franklin Street, past John F. Kennedy Plaza and around Philadelphia City Hall. In California, the nation's most populous state, demonstrations have taken place in many cities including Los Angeles and San Francisco, where protesters blocked traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge to protest. In the UK, despite a warning from the government about avoiding large gatherings to limit the spread of COVID-19, the Parliament Square in London still has thousands of protesters protesting against discrimination, race and justice for George Floyd. Other protests are also scheduled across the UK, including in Manchester, Leicester, Sheffield and Newcastle upon Tyne. In Australia, tens of thousands marched in many cities and towns to protest with a slogan, "Right to Blacks," on Saturday, despite police efforts and a ban from the courts. In Sydney, police used pepper spray to target protesters who gathered at the Central Station. Fortunately, these actions did not turn into violence. In addition, in France, Germany and many other countries yesterday, there were anti-racial demonstrations. 2. Update COVID-19 in the world. As of 7 p.m. on June, according to the Worldometer statistics page, the world had nearly 7 million people infected with COVID-19. Specifically, the world has recorded a total of 6,964,651 cases of COVID-19, including 401,582 deaths. The number of patients recovering is 3,403,757. The world's largest outbreak, the United States, recorded an additional 20,938 cases and 665 deaths, bringing the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country to 1,986,646 cases, and the total number of deaths from this epidemic is 112,055. Case 3. Brazilian news. Brazil is the country hardest hit by COVID-19 in the southern hemisphere and is the second largest outbreak in the world. The South American country recorded an additional 13,108 cases and 409 deaths, bringing the total to 659,114 cases and 35,456 deaths. Countries in Latin America continue to record a sharp increase in COVID-19 cases. Chile recorded 127,745 and 1,541 deaths. The numbers in Mexico are 110,026 and 13,174. Swedish news. According to the Skånska News website, June 5, June 3, the leading Swedish epidemiologist and medical advisor Anderson Tegnell admitted the mistake of giving an interview with Swedish radio. SR. If strict controls were implemented in the first place, not many people would have died, he said. Anderson Tegnell is the lead moderator of the population immunity policy in Sweden. He regrets, if I could make a decision with data and information that is known today, I would choose strict control measures to save more lives. As of June 5, Sweden had 42,939 confirmed cases of infection and 4,639 deaths. According to this rate, there are more than 400 people infected with over 1 million people. This is the world-leading level. The biggest victim of this population immunity policy is the elderly, and Tegnell said in an interview, I know people of this age are susceptible, but I didn't expect it to be fast. So quick and easy. 5. Italy news. On June 6, the Italian Civil Protection Agency announced it had recorded an additional 270 cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of COVID-19 cases in the loot-shaped country to 234.801 cases. In addition, Italy also recorded 72 deaths over the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of COVID-19 deaths in the country to 33,846 cases, while the number of recovering cases was 163,781 cases, an increase of 1,297 cases. The Civil Protection Agency said the number of hospitalizations with symptoms continued to decrease with 5,002 cases, a 299 reduction, of which the number of active treatment cases was only 293 cases, down 55 cases. 6. Spanish news. Although the COVID-19 pandemic showed signs of cooling in Spain, the country still recorded 332 new cases as of 7 p.m. on June 7. The total number of COVID-19 cases in Spain was 288,390 cases, including 27,135 people died. 7. Indian news. India is the largest outbreak in Asia with 246,622 cases of COVID-19 infection caused by COVID-19 with 10,438 new cases detected in the last 24 hours. The South Asian nation has nearly 7,000 deaths due to COVID-19, with a number of deaths increasing daily. 8. Turkey news. Turkey recorded 878 new cases and 21 deaths from COVID-19 on June 6. The total number of infected cases in Turkey is now 169,218 cases, including 4,669 deaths. 9. Turkey news. Meanwhile, Iran has overtaken Turkey to become the largest Middle East outbreak. The total number of COVID-19 cases in Iran is currently 169,425 after an additional 2,269 cases were recorded. The total number of deaths from this disease in Iran is 8,209 cases. 10. Indonesia news. On June 7, Indonesia's West Java provincial government decided to extend large-scale social restrictions, PSBB, in Bogor, Depok and Bekasi, three major cities in Greater Jakarta, until July 2. According to the head of the anti-COVID task force of West Java Province, Atma, the decision will take effect in 28 days, from June 6. However, PSBB will be adjusted for each district and village, based on the urgency of each locality, as well as Jakarta's plan to begin to relax PSBB in some areas this month. Earlier, West Java Governor Ridwan Kamil issued a plan to prepare for a new normal period to restart a number of sectors on condition of complying with the medical measures against the epidemic of COVID-19. As of June 7, Indonesia recorded a total of 31,186 cases of COVID-19, including 1,851 deaths. There are still 4 provinces and 10 cities and districts maintaining PSBB, of which West Java province has the longest application period. 11. Greek news. Greece also decided to extend another 2 weeks of a blockade order to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic in overcrowded refugee camps amid a country trying to revive its economy based on tourism. According to the Greek government official Gazette, measures to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 epidemic lasted until June 21 for refugee camps nationwide. Previously, on March 21, Greece implemented drastic prevention measures in refugee camps, and from March 23, a general blockade was imposed. More than 33,000 refugees live in crowds in 5 Greek islands on the Aegean Sea, while their capacity is only 5,400. Meanwhile, about 70,000 people are living in other refugee camps on the mainland. Although so far, no deaths from COVID-19 have been reported in refugee camps and there are only a few dozen cases, the Greek government has extended protests against it several times. Epidemic in these camps. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of coronavirus, channel and travel for all fantage respectfully, and see you in the next video.
In Finland, the Ministry of Health said June 4 that the number of COVID-19 infections has decreased in the past 2 weeks, although schools reopened in mid-May. Restaurants are allowed to reopen on June 1, and public services such as libraries, theaters and sports facilities began to function again. The number of infections has decreased, but scientists warn that there is still a risk of an increase in the disease if social gap is not implemented. Finland has so far recorded 6,911 cases of COVID-19 and 321 deaths. Last week, the Finnish government removed its citizens' recommendations to avoid traveling within the country, but it was not decided after June 14 whether restrictions on cross-border travel would continue. The country plans to start using the COVID-19 tracing application via mobile phones in August. 12. International Relations News. 12. International Relations News. Australia and India signed an agreement to allow forces on both sides to use each other's military bases amid China's continuing escalation of tensions in the South China Sea. During the India-Australia online conference on 4/6 local time, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi officially signed a new agreement to strengthen bilateral defense cooperation called the Mutual Logistics Agreement, MLSA, CNN said. Mutual Logistics Support Agreement, MLSA, CNN said. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Please subscribe Knowledge of Coronavirus channel at https://tenurl.com/s4gaps Knowledge of Coronavirus channel and travel for all fantage respectfully, and see you in the next video.
6. Chinese news. Wuhan Dr. Hu Weifeng turned black from coronavirus infection, who passed away in late April due to a brain hemorrhage. Chinese netizens are angry about this news. After 4 months of fighting the disease, Dr. Hu Weifeng of Wuhan Central Hospital, colleague of the late physician Li Wenliang, passed away June 2. His death caused outrage on social networks. China. According to the BBC, Dr. Hu Weifeng, 42 years old, a specialist in urology, appeared in the newspaper in March when his skin turned black due to COVID-19. This complication occurred because his liver lost function in the process. Treatment course. 7. News from Vietnam. At an online meeting of experts from the North, Central and South in the afternoon of June 4, Choray Hospital said that the good news is that the lungs of 91 British pilots had recovered 50%. The British Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City visited patients. 8. Swedish news. Controversy over Sweden's COVID-19 prevention strategy rekindled when epidemiologist Anders Tegnell, in charge of designing the country's anti-epidemic policy, intended to acknowledge the flaws in the way many people died. Casualties. While the COVID-19 outbreak broke out in Europe, Sweden was a country that did not apply strict anti-epidemic blockades such as blockade and relied on voluntary social distance, banning the gathering of over 50 people. Trips of less than 2 hours to visit family are still allowed. However, because of this comfort, the situation of COVID-19 in Sweden in late May became tense. Its daily mortality rate is the highest in Europe, even 5 days at the highest level in the world. 9. Russian news. Russia will start distributing Aviflavir, the first COVID-19 drug approved by the country's Ministry of Health, to patients next week. This is considered a move to promote the country back to normal life. Aviflavir is the first potential new strain of coronavirus drug approved by the Russian Ministry of Health after clinical trials. Aviflavir, international name Favipiravir, was first developed by a Japanese company in the late 1990s. The company was later acquired by Fujifilm, often used to treat severe flu patients. Russian experts have redesigned to enhance the effectiveness of Aviflavir in the treatment of COVID-19. 10. Japanese news. Japan will fund $300 million for an international organization committed to providing vaccines to people around the world. The move comes as Gavi Vaccine Alliance is calling on the international community to fund vaccine development and other efforts to cope with a new strain of coronavirus. Earlier, the Japanese government pledged $100 million to sponsor the organization. However, Japan decided to contribute an additional $200 million. Under the plan, Prime Minister Abe Shinzo will announce the financial support in a video message broadcast at the coalition meeting on Thursday, June 4, 2020. The purpose of the Japanese government to support the development and use of the vaccine is probably to ensure that the 2020 Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games will take place next year after a 1-year delay. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of coronavirus, channel and travel for all fantage respectfully, and see you in the next video.
Bye.